Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really fundamental for, well, any business that wants to last, corporate governance.
Right, and we're going to look at it through a maybe slightly unexpected lens, using trusts.
Exactly. How can incorporating trusts actually, boost accountability, improve oversight? We've looked at a bunch of articles,
Yeah,
guides,
stuff talking about the principles, why it matters.
and our mission really is to figure out how this tool, which people maybe don't think about enough, could be a shortcut to building a company that's, well, more secure, more trustworthy.
It's definitely more than just paperwork. It's about design. Designing for stability, for ethical behavior right from the get-go.
Building it into the foundations.
Kind of like architecting resilience into the business itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've all seen it, right? One slip up at the top, maybe someone has too much power.
Oh yeah, it can cause massive problems, serious fallout.
So today we want to unpack how using trusts strategically might actually help head off some of those risks.
Okay, so let's dive in. When we talk about corporate governance, what are we actually, talking about? Layman's terms.
Okay, good question. Simply put, it's just about setting up the rules of the game. Who does what? What are the processes? How do we make sure the companies run fairly, responsibly?
So knowing who's in charge, what decisions, what the boundaries are.
Exactly. And how you sort things out when people disagree. It's kind of like the operating system for the business.
That's a good analogy, the OS.
Mhm.
Okay, so how does a trust fit in? How does that strengthen the operating system?
Right. This is where it gets interesting. A trust can be a really powerful way to reinforce all that. Think of it like a separate container,
A
almost.
container.
Yeah, an entity that holds certain assets. Could be company shares, could be intellectual property, maybe even buildings.
Okay.
And it holds them with a specific job to do. Manage those assets according to rules set out by the business owner.
Ah, so it's got instructions.
Clear instructions. The trust acts like a guardian, making sure those assets are used properly for the benefit of whoever they're supposed to benefit. That might be the business itself, future owners, maybe even employees.
And what's really key there, I think, is that it automatically brings in a layer of independence, right?
Mhm.
It's not just the owner or the managers making all the calls day to day about those specific assets.
Precisely. The trustee, the person or entity managing the trust, has a legal duty. It's called a fiduciary duty.
Okay, fiduciary duty. What does that mean in practice?
It means they have to act in the best interests of the beneficiaries, the people the trust is set up for. It's not optional.
So that creates a kind of check and balance.
Exactly. A built-in check. And, there's this idea that trusts are only for, like, the super rich planning their estates.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But honestly, it can be a super useful tool for almost any business owner who's thinking seriously about accountability, about protecting the business long term. Doesn't matter the size, really.
That's important to stress. It's not some exclusive club. So,
Right.
okay, let's get practical. How exactly do trusts make accountability and oversight better?
Well, that fiduciary duty we just mentioned, that's huge. The trustee is legally required to put the beneficiary's interests first.
And there are consequences if they don't.
And yeah, real legal consequences. So it's not just a suggestion, it's a serious obligation. That adds a layer of independent oversight that might just not be there otherwise.
Right. And if you link that back to the big picture of good governance, that duty lines up perfectly with acting ethically, being careful,
Yeah.
all the stuff you need for a business people can trust.
And think about succession planning. That's another big one.
Ah, yes. Always tricky, especially in family businesses.
Totally. Handing over the reins smoothly, fairly, it's tough. A trust can literally spell out the rules for that transition. Who takes over, when, how are big decisions made during that period?
So it takes some of the emotion out, maybe?
Hmm?
Makes it more procedural?
Exactly. It can head off major arguments or, power struggles before they even start. Turns a potentially messy family thing into a defined legal process.
That structure can be invaluable. Because without it, even with good intentions, things can go sideways fast.
And speaking of power struggles, trusts can be great for preventing one person from getting too much control.
How so?
Well, you can structure the trust to limit the authority of any single individual. Maybe certain big decisions need a wider agreement, like a majority of trustees or beneficiaries.
So it forces a more balanced approach to power.
Right, it builds that balance right into the legal structure rather than just hoping people will play nice.
That's interesting. It's embedding the principle of shared decision-making almost.
Yeah, and it's not just about the insiders either. You can set up trusts to specifically consider other stakeholders.
Like who?
Employees, maybe customers, the local community. If the owner wants those interests formally considered in how the business operates, a trust can be a way to lock that in.
So they're quite flexible then. You can tailor them to the owner's values beyond just profit.
Very flexible. Let's paint a quick picture. Say you have a family business. The owner wants the kids to take over eventually.
Classic scenario.
Right. But maybe they worry the kids will fight over strategy. One's all about the numbers, the other's focused on new products. Could clash.
Happens all the time.
So the owner could put the company's shares into a trust. The trust document then lays out rules. Maybe major strategic decisions need a 2/3 vote from the kids.
Okay.
Or it could specify who gets what roles, what their responsibilities are. And the trustee, maybe an independent lawyer or accountant.
Someone neutral.
Yeah, someone neutral. Their job, their legal duty is to make sure everyone sticks to those rules. It stops one kid from just running roughshod over the others or doing something risky.
And that brings in objectivity, which can be gold when family and business mix. It provides a framework for making fair calls.
And look, this isn't just for mom and pop shops. Big companies use trusts too. Ever heard of ESOPs? Employee stock ownership plans.
Sure, yeah, where employees get shares.
Often those shares are held in a trust for the benefit of the employees. So it distributes ownership, aligns everyone's interests. Trusts pop up in mergers too, holding assets temporarily.
Right. So in bigger firms, trusts can help spread ownership and, like with ESOPs, really link employee rewards to how the company's doing. Makes sense.
Okay, so we've talked accountability, oversight, succession. Now let's connect it to something just as vital: building trust in your business.
Yeah, that's the payoff, isn't it? And I think good governance generally, whether it uses a trust or not, just naturally leads to more transparency.
How so?
Well, when the rules are clear, when there are systems for oversight, it encourages more open communication, more regular reporting. People know what's going on.
Absolutely. And think about the real-world effect of that transparency. Say a business has regular audits. Maybe the trust requires it.
Okay?
If those audits catch some financial issue early, maybe even prevent fraud, that safeguards the whole business. And when stakeholders see that happening,
Investors, employees, customers.
yeah, they see that scrutiny, that honesty, and it builds confidence. It shows the company isn't hiding anything.
And that transparency itself is a deterrent, right? If people know their actions are being reviewed, they're probably less likely to try anything shady or overly risky.
Good point. So ultimately, you get this powerful mix: transparency plus accountability, often strengthened by these governance structures like trusts.
And that equals greater trust overall.
Exactly. Investors feel safer putting money in. Employees feel more secure and maybe more engaged. Customers feel better about sticking with a company they see as ethical and well-run.
It really prompts a core question for any business owner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How are you actively building that trust with everyone who matters to your business? Having that clear governance framework is, well, it's got to be step one.
Right. So thinking about you, the listener, what are some actual steps you could take, starting now, to apply this thinking to your own business?
Well, going back to that playground analogy.
Yeah.
Maybe start by just mapping out your current playground rules. Seriously. Who makes what decisions? How do you handle disagreements right now?
Just getting it down on paper.
Yeah, just visualizing it can show you where things are maybe a bit fuzzy or where more clarity would help.
Okay. And then maybe think about your key assets. What really needs protecting? Is it intellectual property, key relationships, physical stuff? What needs careful management for the future?
Good one. And then, it's probably smart to talk to the pros.
Lawyers, financial advisors.
Yeah, exactly. They can look at your specific situation and tell you if a trust makes sense, how it might work for you. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
For sure. And the big message here is be proactive. Don't wait for a crisis.
Please don't wait.
Ah.
Thinking about this stuff before there's a problem saves so many headaches later.
Okay, here's something really concrete you could do. Like today, pick one area in your business where maybe decision-making feels a bit unclear or you worry about fairness.
Just one area.
Yeah. And just try writing down a simple rule for how that situation should be handled. That's it. That's your first step towards more formal governance.
That's a great starting point. And while you're thinking like that, look around for any power pockets.
Power pockets?
Yeah, places where maybe one person has kind of an outsized amount of control or influence. Just being aware of those is useful.
Okay. And maybe think bigger picture, too. Could something like an ESOP, giving employees a stake through a trust, could that work for your business? Could it boost engagement?
Worth exploring, definitely. Creates that shared ownership feeling.
And it's not set and forget, right? You need regular check-ins, review how things are operating, review the rules you've set up.
Absolutely. Businesses change, grow. Your governance needs to keep up.
So, another immediate action. Maybe schedule a quick team meeting just to talk about decision-making. Ask them, what rules or processes would make things clearer, run smoother?
You might get some really good ideas from the ground level.
And don't forget the money side. Even if you're small, get some regular process for reviewing the financials. That's basic good governance.
Oh, absolutely critical. Financial transparency builds trust internally, too. So share relevant info with your team when you can.
Yeah, build that shared understanding and maybe foster a culture where it's okay to ask questions, where scrutiny isn't seen as negative but as a safeguard.
That's huge, making it safe to speak up if something looks off.
Okay, one last quick action item for you. How about sending a simple update to your team? Here's how we did recently, here's what's coming up. Just a small step towards transparency.
Simple communication like that can make a big difference, builds that feeling of being in it together.
All right, let's try and wrap this up. Our deep dive today, I think, really showed that trusts aren't just some obscure legal thing. They can be a practical tool.
A really versatile tool for businesses, yeah.
Yeah.
Any size, really. Helping set and enforce rules.
Balancing power, heading off fights, making sure the business runs according to a plan, boosting accountability.
Right. And we saw how that accountability, combined with transparency, which these structures encourage, that's what really builds trust.
With everyone, employees, investors, customers, it all connects.
And the main takeaway, I think, has to be act now. Be proactive. Don't wait for governance problems to bite you.
Thinking about these frameworks before you need them makes for a much stronger, more resilient business down the line.
Definitely.
So maybe a final question for you to chew on. What kind of foundation are you building right now for your business's future, its health, its integrity? And how could a more formal structure, maybe even involving a trust, help you build that legacy?
Yeah, it's about thinking long-term, beyond today's operations. What's the enduring ethical framework you want for your organization?
Lots to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Hopefully that sparks some ideas you can actually use. Join us next time for another exploration.